The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Now on 77 WABC, your New York weekend. A guy who has terrorist on speed dial. Is he gutsy or crazy? It's Aaron Klein, Investigative Radio, with WorldNet Daily Reporter and John Batchelor contributor, Aaron Klein.
Last week on this program, we got into a debate about what the Constitution means when it spells out natural-born citizen. I'm referring, of course, to the clause that stipulates presidential eligibility. Pull out your constitutions, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, requiring that the nation's elected chief be, quote, a natural-born citizen. Now, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution defines citizen, all persons born or naturalized in the United States, but does not define the specific term natural-born. Well, joining me right now to continue this discussion, I decided to bring on a constitutional scholar, a legal scholar, is Dr. Herbert W. Titus. He is the counsel to the law firm William J. Olson. He previously taught constitutional law, common law, and other subjects for 30 years at different American Bar Association-approved law schools. He also served as the founding dean of the College of Law and Government at Regent University. Before that, he was a trial attorney and special U.S. attorney with the Department of Justice. He also was admitted to practicing before the U.S. Supreme Court. Suffice it to say, he is qualified to have this conversation. Dr. Titus, welcome to Aaron Klein Investigative Radio.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come on board.
Absolutely. So what, to your mind, and what, to your scholarship, does the term natural-born mean?
Well, let's start out first by saying what it doesn't necessarily mean, and that is people today assume that the 14th Amendment definition of citizenship, that is, a person who is born in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, is a definition of natural-born citizen. It is not. And it certainly is not a definition of natural-born citizen that appears in Article 2. As you know, Article 2 was in the original Constitution, and the 14th Amendment didn't come into the Constitution until after the Civil War. So it wasn't even designed to define what a natural-born citizen is. So you have to lay the 14th Amendment aside and look at the term in the Constitution as it was understood and at the time the Constitution was ratified.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, because if you have two different terms, you have citizen, and it defines citizen, and the fact that it doesn't use the word citizen when stipulating presidential eligibility, but takes it a step further, uses this new phraseology, natural-born citizen, so that obviously to a legal mind, or really to anybody reading the Constitution, they should know, well, wait a minute, it defines citizen, but then it has separately natural-born, so obviously natural-born citizen only for the U.S. president, that it means something more. So let's get into that meaning. Take us there.
Whenever you see the word natural and you see it in a legal document, it is a statement with regard to natural law. So what they're talking about with a natural-born citizen is that it's according to natural law. Now, natural law at the time the Constitution was written was understood to be man's best understanding of the law of nature. The law of nature, as it appears in the Declaration of Independence, which is the founding charter of the nation, is specifically a reference to God's will as revealed in nature. So what we see here is a natural-born citizen, that what was being attempted by the founders was to identify a citizen who by the law of nature was a citizen of a particular nation. And it's important to realize that this is the presupposition upon which natural-born citizen is based, that this is determined by the law of the nature of things, not by any particular custom in any particular time.
So then does this mean we're talking about, because that gets a little bit confusing, what does that mean? The law of nature of things, natural-born citizen, are you saying that it means both parents need to be U.S. citizens themselves?
Yes, because it goes back to the formation of nations. And if you read the Holy Scriptures, you will find that God is the one that scattered the people into nations. It's the nations after the names of the three sons of Noah. So the very concept of nationhood implies citizenship. So God is the author of the law of nations, the law of nature. So you have to go back and look at how citizenship was established in the beginning. And that would be based upon a father and a mother and a child. And the child would have the citizenship of the father and the mother. If the father and mother were a citizen of a particular nation, then the child took that citizenship from his parents. Now, the reason why that's important is because people aren't accidentally born in any nation. The understanding is that God, the Creator, placed people in particular nations, and therefore, according to the law of nature and of nations, you are a citizen of the nation in which your mother and your father are citizens.
This is actually very interesting. I didn't even look at it from that perspective. I mean, there's no question, if you look at the founding framers, that they were informed by religion, by the Bible, by God. I was looking at the legal scholars, the Swiss philosopher, for example, Vital, who also defines it just as that. He says that in order to be of the country, and he's talking about natural born, it is necessary that a person be born of a father who is a citizen, for if he is born there of a foreigner, it will be the place of his birth and not his country. So is it possible that here we're not also talking about the biblical standards, but also that from the founding framers, they were concerned about dual loyalty, that if one of your parents was of another nationality, then this could also have some dual loyalty issues for the founding framers. And we're speaking with Herbert W. Titus, constitutional scholar.
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can trace that back to Deuteronomy chapter 17, where Moses prophesied that there would be a time when the people of Israel would reject God as their direct ruler, and that they would want a king like all the other nations. And what Deuteronomy 17 says, but you shall not have a king other than one who is chosen from among your brethren. So here you have a beautiful example in the Old Testament scriptures, as we Christians call it, but in the Hebrew scriptures, a perfect example of why you want to have someone who's a natural-born citizen in order to maintain the integrity of the nation and to assure that the person who's at the head of the nation has an allegiance that's not divided between one nation or the other.
Well, so this goes back to the Bible. I'm actually learning something right now, and I hope the listeners are too. Now, so then I have to ask you, because natural born, and I agree, I went through the founding framers, the early writings. I went through the different Supreme Court rulings. I even went through the recent congressional ruling and legislation that Obama himself signed on to that defined John McCain as natural born because both of his parents were U.S. citizens. So if it goes by both parents being U.S. citizens, the obvious question becomes, well, wait a minute. We know that Barack Obama's father is Kenyan, a British citizen, British subject at the time. And so forgetting about all of the birth certificate issues and the issues of where was he born, and I have said time and again that I have not seen proof he was born overseas. Let's take for granted he was born in Hawaii. His father, we know, was not an American citizen at the time of his birth or at any time. So just looking at constitutional law as a constitutional scholar, do you now say that Obama, therefore, does not fit the qualification of natural-born citizen and is not constitutionally qualified?
That is correct. It's not the place where a person is born. It's to whom the person is born. And importantly to notice here that this natural-born citizen requirement is required only of the President of the United States. The Supreme Court Chief Justice isn't required to be a natural-born citizen. No member of Congress is required to be a natural-born citizen. Only the President of the United States. And there's a reason for this, because the President is the chief constitutional officer of the nation. And he only has the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. All other elected officials have only the oath to support the Constitution. It's only the President who has this special oath written in the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend. And that's the reason why the natural-born citizen requirement was placed there by our founders.
Well, then, and the obvious question becomes, and I want to see if you have a take on this, because this is not about politics. Forget Democrat, forget Republican. It's about the Constitution. It says right there, natural-born citizen, and this is a glaring issue. I mean, we have a president whose father was not, we know for a fact, his father was not an American citizen. So the question becomes, why is it that constitutional scholars are not debating this? Why is it that Republicans and Democrats are not even talking about this? I mean, most Americans don't even know what natural born means. We have a president with a glaring eligibility constitutional issue. Why are we as a nation, what is your take on this, not having a constitutional debate about natural born?
Well, I believe it's because we have become convinced that we are in a global society, that that national boundaries are really artificial constructs. This is the same question with regard to requiring someone to have an identification before voting. The assumption by many people is, oh, well, you can't prevent somebody from voting just because they're not a citizen of the nation. What you have here is a move towards a global society and wiping away the boundaries of nations, which again is a kind of modern-day Tower of Babel, with people trying to come back in with a one-world idea, a one-world government, and so the issue of natural-born citizen is really irrelevant to many people.
All right, Herbert W. Titus of the law firm William J. Olson informing us of the natural-born citizenship clause.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.